हेलो। सो काफ़ी टाइम से पढ़ाई नहीं हो पा रही थी। लॉट्स ऑफ रीजंस। खुद का ही खुद की ही गलतियाँ हैं। किसी और चीज़ पे डाल नहीं सकते। तो मैं ये एक बार मैं सोचा कि शायद आई शुड टेक द हेल्प। सो आई ब्रॉट माई सेल्फ टू दिस टेबल to to study because so now this is not any class for anybody. This is not teaching. This is just me covering some piece of information for myself. So that's how this is going to be from now, I guess. It'll be me covering information for myself, and of course, uh, अभी आने वाले जो मेंस हैं उसका ही तैयारी कर रहा हूँ मैं. So we'll begin. So this is UPSC Essentials. UPSC Essentials. ये है नवंबर नवंबर वर्जन. तो ये कौन है वैसे? नोबेल प्राइज आउटरीच फोटो. एल्फ्रेड नोबेल है क्या? तो ये है इसका इंडेक्स. एंड आई हैव ऑलरेडी done what some articles from some magazines. So abhi we are doing the environment and disaster management section of this magazine. So the article is what the rapid ice melt in western Antarctica means. So this is how it is going to be. I mean, अगर आप लोग कोई देख रहे हो तो आई शुड सजेस्ट यू इंक्रीज द स्पीड, बिकॉज मैं तो रियल टाइम में पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ और इसमें से आपको ज़्यादा फ़ायदा भी नहीं होगा शायद अगर आप पूरे ध्यान से नहीं सुनेंगे. ऑब्वियसली मतलब खुद से पढ़ लेते तो इससे मेरे से तेज पढ़ लेते. तो आप स्पीड बढ़ा के ही देखिएगा वीडियो अगर देख रहे हो तो. तो यहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है? इज दिस यस what the rapid ice melt in western Antarctica means. The rapid melting of ice sheet in West Antarctica, alright, particularly the west. वेस्ट में कुछ सीज हैं. एक तो है वेडल सी और एक ऑर्कनी आइलैंड. और क्या क्या है अंटार्कटिका में? कुछ कुछ चीज़ें हैं. ऐसे कुछ निकला होता है एक पॉइंट. और ये चिली से के पास होता है. अर्जेंटीना से पास होता है. फॉकलैंड आइलैंड्स होते हैं अर्जेंटीना के टिप पे. और यहाँ पे वो अंटार्कटिका का पार्ट होता है. ऐसा कुछ होता है. तो अंटार्कटिका में काफ़ी सीज हैं. कुछ आइस शेल्स ब्रेक हो चुके हैं. सो विल परहैप्स गेट टू सी अ मैप ऑल्सो. Rapid melting of ice sheet in western Antarctica is now unavoidable, according to a new study. What is an ice sheet and why does its melting matter is all hope lost? So this study, written by Alind Chauhan. So there's one thing that you can mention out of this first paragraph, which is that according to some study somewhere, the western Antarctican ice sheet rapid melting is unavoidable. And this is something you can use in your introduction. Unavoidable. Alright. The rapid melting of West Antarctica's ice sheet due to warm waters around is now unavoidable. And no matter how much carbon emissions are cut, according to new study, if lost completely, the ice sheet would raise the global mean sea level by 5.3 to 17.5 or 17.4 feet. 17.4 feet is too high, unavoidable, and will raise the sea level sea level rise. So इससे हमें जेनरिक आंसर्स भी के पॉइंट भी मिल जाते हैं कि आइस शीट मेल्ट होने से नॉट जस्ट अंटार्कटिका बट कहीं भी तो क्या क्या इफेक्ट हो रहा है क्रायोस्फीयर से, क्या 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 हमें हम पर क्या इफेक्ट है क्रायोस्फीयर मेल्टिंग पे के वजह से। ये एक प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन था क्रायोस्फीयर के बारे में। तो जो भी हो सी लेवल राइज अंटार्कटिका के सी लेवल राइज की वजह से 17.4 मीटर्स 17.4 मीटर्स सॉरी 17.4 फीट एंड 5.3 मीटर्स। एक्चुअली एक फ्लोर का हाइट 3 मीटर्स और थोड़ा सा होता है, तो दो फ्लोर्स मान लीजिए ऑलमोस्ट, तो दो फ्लोर्स का हाइट। तो अभी हम लोग को रिसेंटली भी पता है कि जो पानी आ गया था बेसमेंट में राउस स्टडी सर्कल के बेसमेंट में, उसका कहीं मैं सुना कि द वाटर हाइट वाज 12 फीट एंड सो या सो दिस इज 17.4 फीट सी लेवल राइज हो जाएगा एंड दैट्स कैटास्ट्रोफिक, दैट विल बी कैटास्ट्रोफिक। मतलब हम लोग को पता नहीं है कि उसकी वजह से कितना डिवास्टेटिंग हो सकता है, थोड़े से भी राइज से काफ़ी कुछ बियॉन्ड इमेजिनेशन हो सकता है। So, a potential devastating consequence for millions of people living in vulnerable coastal cities across the world, including in India, and I live in one. Even under a best case scenario of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre industrial levels. जहाँ भी 1.5 degrees Celsius we are mentioning, we should remember it is about above the pre industrial levels. Water in West Antarctica will continue to get warmer 3 times faster than in 20th century, leading to an increased melting of the region's ice sheet, the analysis has found. So water around Antarctica, water in West Antarctica. So we'll write this point, West Antarctican Sea या वाटर सी लिख दूंगा मैं अभी फ़िलहाल अपने लिए नोट्स बना रहा हूँ मैं। 3x 3 warming. Alright, uh, the analysis has found the study unavoidable future increase in western Antarctican ice shelf melting over the 21st century was published by the journal Nature last week. ये अच्छा journal है. It was carried out by Caitlin Norton and Paul R. Holland, both of whom work at the British Antarctic Survey, and Jon de Wright of the Northumbria University, UK. But first, what is an ice sheet? An ice sheet is essentially a mass of glacial ice that covers more than 50,000 square kilometers of land. So that's the definition, guys. So we did another definition yesterday of cloudbursts. 10 centimeter rainfall in an area of 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer in an hour is a cloudburst. And there are other definitions also. And so definition of an ice sheet. Ice sheet is where at least covers 50,000 square kilometers of land, roughly large enough to blanket Uttarakhand in ice. What? An ice sheet is essentially a mass of glacial ice that covers more than 50,000 square kilometers of land. Okay. Roughly large enough to blanket Uttarakhand in ice. Okay, it's talking about blanketing an area in ice. Okay. There are two major ice sheets. in the world today. Greenland ice sheet and Antarctica ice sheet. Together, they contain about two-thirds of all the fresh water on Earth. Great, great, super great figures. So, here's the Greenland ice sheet, and there is Antarctica or West Antarctica. Antarctica ice sheet. Alright. Antarctica ice sheet constitute two-thirds of all fresh water on Earth. Alright. So we'll move further. So now this is carving front of an ice shelf in West Antarctica. Ice carving, it's called. It's not caving in, it's carving. Carving front of a West Antarctic ice shelf. And the definition we have just read is definition of ice sheet, not ice shelf. And now this means that over time, when ice sheet ice sheets gain mass, they contribute to fall in global mean sea level. And when they lose mass, they contribute to a rise in global mean sea level, according to a report by NASA. Geniuses. What a statement. Ooh, how is West Antarctic ice sheet melting? There are various processes through which ice sheets melt. One of them is when warm ocean waters melt ice shelves, the edges of an ice sheet which floats on the ocean. And so ice shelves are edges of an ice sheet, okay? And speaking to the Indian Express, Norton, one of the authors of the new study, explains ice shelves stabilize the land-based glaciers just behind them. If an ice shelf thins or disappears, these glaciers tend to speed up, discharging more ice into the ocean and causing sea level rise. So basically, ice shelves stabilize the land-based glaciers just behind them. So I'll just draw a rough thing here. So here is the land, all right, and here is the land-based ice shelf, ice sheet, and the extended portion is called the ice shelf. And Norton says that the ice shelves protect the land-based ice sheets just behind them from getting directly uh, in contact with the warm waters, and so slowing down their melting. All right, so I'll. It's important to mention ice shelves now. Ice shelves uh, protect ice sheets from warm waters. All right. So the next thing is, if an ice shelf thins, all right. Note that both ice shelves and ice sheets are different from sea ice. Ooh, which is the free floating ice that surrounds the polar regions. Sea ice is created by sea water freezing. So sea ice is the free floating ice that surrounds the polar region. Is that? Note that both ice shelves and ice sheets are different from sea ice, which is the free floating ice that surrounds the polar region. Okay. Now this sounds like uh, an ice sheet. What is sea ice? I mean, we are not doing this for prelims, but prelims में ऐसी चीज़ें बारीकियाँ पूछी जा सकती हैं. Mains में it's good to have the knowledge. because जितना ज़्यादा you know उतना ज़्यादा better your answer will be. Sea ice is just surrounds the poles, free floating. Free floating surrounding the pole, alright, is called sea ice. And the next thing is the same process is taking place in West Antarctica, particularly the Amundsen Sea. Have you missed something? So, what's this picture? An illustration of most of Earth's ice features, including the ice sheet. So, here's the bedrock. This is the ocean. Yeah. So, this is ice shelf, and this is ice sheet, and at the edge of it is the ice shelf, and this is called a firn, FIRN, and this is all prelims ka gyan. Uh, and this is ice flow, and this is sea ice, okay, floating pieces, sea level, and this is mountain glacier, and this is snow line. These are the basic features, ice features. Iceberg, alright, ice shelf, sea ice, ice sheet, mountain glacier. Yeah, this can be asked in prelims anytime. Difference between sea ice and ice sheet and ice shelf and iceberg. That's the kind of stuff they ask. Okay, so now we further proceed to this. The same process is taking place in West Antarctica, particularly the Amundsen Sea. Wake Amundsen Sea. Amundsen. Amundsen Sea. Which is the focus which is the focus of Norton's study. For decades, the region's ice shelves have been depleting. Glaciers have been flowing faster towards the ocean, and the ice sheet has been shrinking. Okay, what are the findings of the study? To conduct the analysis, the scientists have used a high resolution computer model of Amundsen Sea to provide the most comprehensive assessment of warm warming in West Antarctica to date, and they have used the model to run many different simulations. It was 21st century, totaling over 4,000 years of ocean warming and ice shelf melting in Amundsen Sea. So, if there's any chance for you to mention what the computer modelings and stuff can do, then I'm definitely going to mention the computer model of Amundsen Sea. I'm going to write it, and we are going to revisit these uh, notes that we are making. Computer model of Amundsen Sea. Alright, उसके वजह से ice sheet melting के बारे में रिसर्च हो रहा है उसको यूज़ करके. Alright, so we considered different trajectories for fossil fuel burning, from the best case scenario where global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius in line with the Paris Agreement, to the worst, in which coal, oil, and gas use is uncontrolled. We also considered the influence of natural variations in the climate, such as the timing of events such as El Nino. The researchers write in an article published in the conversation. So, in a computer based simulation model of an ocean itself, they have used other parameter like the possibilities of El Nino years and climate change, etc. And they've released a 4,000 year report of its warming cycles. and cooling cycles. So the findings are grim. That's what they're saying. The findings are grim. All scenarios show significant and widespread future warming of Amundsen Sea and increased ice shelves melting. Moreover, there is little to no difference between the scenarios up to 2045. So all the scenarios, even if you are able to keep it below 1.5, the scenario is still bad. In any scenario, in any scenario, less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, also, uh, the situation is grim. All right, and so what else are we saying about this? India, this will most likely lead to an increased sea level rise, which will affect, oh, ocean warming and ice shelf melting in the 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario is statistically the same as in a mid-range scenario, which is closer to what existing pledges to reduce fossil fuel use over the coming decades would produce. So this is something we have already received in our heads. Ki, even if the scenario is controlled, the scene is going to be the same. It is closer to what existing pledges to reduce fossil fuel use. That's a mid-range scenario. There's a total 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario, and there's a mid-range scenario which says will reduce the fossil fuel use. And even in that scenario, there's not much difference. In any scenario, the result is going to be mostly likely to lead an increased sea level rise, which will affect coastal communities across the world, including in India. India has a long coastline and dense population and is therefore vulnerable to sea level rise. And if coastal communities cannot afford to defend against the rising seas, for example, by building walls, the people would have to move elsewhere or become refugees. So there's something I want to draw out of this paragraph. In any scenario, uh, the situation is grim. I'm not going to write that. But the thing about India is India has multiple vulnerabilities. Multiple vulnerabilities. Long coastline is okay. Other is pop density. I never mentioned population density as a vulnerability problem. I never could imagine. I couldn't actually figure that out. Now I have, and I'll use that. So, so is all hope lost? Also, there can be a refugee crisis, and these are the points that the GS3 answers are made of: vulnerability, crisis, and also I'll also use this word refugee. All right. So, although the findings are bleak, they shouldn't discourage the efforts to mitigate the impacts of climate change. This study highlights. According to the researchers, the melting western Antarctic ice sheet is just one contributor to sea level rise, which is just one impact of climate change, right? And we have reached the joint the point where some impacts of climate change can no longer be avoided, and substantial ice loss in western Antarctica is probably one of them. But climate change is not all or nothing, and there are many other impacts which we can still avoid or limit, like the loss of the East Antarctic ice sheet, or the severity of heat waves, droughts, and extreme rainfall. So this is a nice conclusion of an answer on environment. I mean, if there's a question about Antarctic ice sheets melting, or if there's a question about forest fires, or if there's a question about um, Arctic reversal of Arctic um, currents, if there's a question about warming of Arabic Ocean or the Arctic, whatever the question is about, we can write that that's not the only that's not the only component that's leading to the sea level rise or whatever effect it has. That's not the only component, and that's not the only impact of climate change. There are lots of areas in where you can actually do some work to prevent uh, further bad things from happening. One of them is East Antarctic current is to be protected. Not the current, East Antarctic Sea protected, and yeah, that's more than what is required to be extracted from this article. The next one is disaster management. Who funds disaster relief in India?